The comments and statements made within the show are the opinions of the commentators and their guests, have not been evaluated by the FDA, and are in no way attempt to diagnose, treat, mitigate, cure, or prevent any disease or illness. The contents of this show are not to be construed as medical advice. If you have a health condition or health concern, please contact a licensed, qualified healthcare practitioner.
Hi everyone, I'm Nan.
And I'm Tom, and this is a Supplement Super Sleuth.
That'll be me, and the Herbal Storyteller.
And that definitely would be me. And together, we're going to take a peek behind the curtain of the natural products industry.
We'll be sharing naturals in the news, dispelling lots of myths, interviewing key players in the industry, and highlighting our favorite herbs and supplements.
So with that, let's pull back that curtain and see what's there.
Hey there, Tom.
Hey, good morning, Nan.
Oh.
Yeah, here we are. Yet again, the Supplement Super Sleuths.
And
that would be you.
And the Herbal Storyteller.
Which would probably be me.
Almost definitely. You've got the hat on.
Oh, I know. Gotta be non-genuine without the hat.
Yeah. Anyway. I'm definitely in a low-key kind of a morning.
That's a good thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Now,
I know.
Usually we do, a whole long show. This is going to be a rather short show, not super short, but we're not going to have what we normally call naturals in the know, which is a guest speaker. We're just going to talk about some naturals in the news, right?
Yes. We're going to start off with we love this segment. It's fun for us. We usually spend some time planning and looking at all the news and generally just giving lots of comments. Some of them we can't say here, but we have a good time with it.
The backstory comments have been.
It's absolutely true. But in any case, we're going to start with our first headline today. Gut health looks to have a big say in cancer treatment success. A European study appears to confirm a link between the health of the gut microbiome and the effectiveness of immunotherapy for a type of skin cancer. What's very interesting about this is, when I looked at it, the European study from King's College in London, which does a lot of research on gut microbiome and individual species, well-known species from the gut microbiome, like Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus. And they actually identified a couple of gut bacteria, responsible for modulating immunotherapy that they're looking at for skin cancer. One of them is a Bifidobacterium. Believe it or not, the study shows that the chances of survival based on healthy microbes nearly doubled between some subgroups. But they go on to say a little bit later, and I love this, the overall, the role of the human gut microbiome in immune checkpoint inhibitor treatment response appears more complex than previously thought, extending beyond differing microbial species simply present or absent in responders and non-responders. And we were laughing about it just before we opened the show today, because this, the way that science kind of works on things is to distill it down to this one thing, right?
Yeah, it's reductionistic.
Right, it's very reductionistic, and in a way that's helpful because it gives us what we call mechanism of action. But the truth about the microbiome is that that's not how it works. It's contributory. It's like trying to look up into a galaxy and trying to figure out which star is creating all the light. That's not how it works, right? Or like Tom was saying, and we were really laughing hard about this, is, when you're in the middle of a forest and you're looking at the bark of a tree. What do you mean the forest? What do you mean the forest?
What tree? What tree?
What tree? I'm looking at this piece of bark on the tree. So that's how the microbiome works. It's like the human population or stars in a galaxy. It's about collaboration and contribution. And that's a dynamic thing. And also, every human being's gut microbiome is different depending upon their environment, what they eat, what they don't eat, how they sleep, et cetera, et cetera. So
It's the epigenetic factor of it.
Absolutely. So it's very interesting that, they make this big headline about, ooh, gut health looks great. And then there's the subscript that says, but it's very complex and we still don't know what the heck we're talking about.
A
So
lot more complicated than we thought.
way complicated.
That's to me, Nan, what it's like is because when you stop and think about it, our gut microbiome, the species, the bacteria in there, and all of the other species that are in there, besides just bacteria. I mean, there's a lot more than just bacteria. They outnumber us as far as the number of them compared to the number of our own cells in our body
Yeah.
by like a factor of 10, or, something like that. So it's like saying, okay, which person in New York City is responsible for giving New York City the feel that we all know of as New York City.
Exactly. Doesn't really work though.
Just that one person.
All right.
And what's he?
Raise
What's
your
he or she
hand.
doing? Let us know where you are
Right.
because we want to talk to you.
Funny.
All right. Well, and then there's another one I just initially when I read this, it really set me back. And so it's an article out of Nutrition News. And basically, it says, don't call it a trend, how Baobab is defining the fiber revolution. Now, it's fascinating because Americans, we get more than enough protein most of the time. So there's very definitely not a protein deficiency in most American diets.
Yeah.
It's not true across the board, but in most American
For the
diets.
most part. Yeah.
However, we don't get enough fiber. Recommendations are 25, grams of fiber for women and 38 grams of fiber for men per day, and we fall woefully short on that.
Yeah.
So, people are always looking for how can we include more fiber because, interestingly enough, fiber has its own problems in terms of manufacturing, and in terms of taking. So, for instance, one of the most common fibers is psyllium husk, and psyllium husk is, it's a great fiber, but what you do is you mix it with water, and then you have to drink it within a few seconds. Otherwise, it turns into a completely unedible glop of gel that you'd end up having to eat with a spoon, and it's not all that great of a taste. And now Baobab, as it turns out, has a great fiber. It stays drinkable. You mix it with water, and it stays drinkable as long as you want to have it stay drinkable. But being an herbalist and being really conscious of wildcrafting, because the company who is actually bringing this to market is basically talking about the fact that it's a sustainable and wildcrafted. And when I hear sustainable and wildcrafted in the same sentence, I
That
go,
doesn't make any sense, right?
stop.
Right.
Because it's a very huge world market. So, I had visions of, baobab trees literally have been around for
They're
200
so
million years.
beautiful, aren't they?
And they're absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
They grow in very small places like Mozambique and Zimbabwe
Yeah.
and Botswana
Yeah.
and Namibia. They're they're iconic in the landscape. They're huge,
Yeah.
and they can take 20 years before they fruit. So they're not really like a tree that you would be planting, going, okay, we're going to have fruit from this tree.
Christmas
in
tree
another 10 years,
farm.
we'll be
Not
rich.
really.
We'll be rich. But it turns out that, in reading the article, it's great because one of the things it does is it allows the local villagers in the areas where the trees grow, they are like the stewards of these trees. And most of the time, it's the women who are harvesting the fruit. And the fruit of a baobab tree, if you've ever seen it, and you see how this giant tree, and it's classified as a succulent, believe it or not.
I didn't know
So
that.
yeah,
I've seen them.
it's not
I've been to South Africa and I've seen
yeah,
them
it's not
in
one of those
person.
things
They're
where
amazing.
yeah, in person they're stunning. They're
Stunning.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
They stand out on the landscape
Yeah.
unbelievably. So
Sentinels,
they have
like
a really
sentinels. Yeah.
yeah, they have a beautiful nut that when it falls off the tree, it's got all kinds of really nice, antioxidants and riboflavin and niacin and pectin and citric acid and all kinds of things, and it's wonderful fiber. And so what this company has decided is they've finally figured out a way to get certified with all of the right certifications, sustainably harvested and women's collectives, supporting of women's collectives because the women in the villages are the ones who normally gather it. So that makes it a really, great way of bringing more income, more uh, support for village economies, and for women in those villages. So at first I thought, okay, this is going to be a bad news deal. That bye bye Baobab. You know,
Oh,
sounds like a song, but no, actually, I think that this could be a really the way the fiber is stacking up, the fact that ease of way it's being taken, and the fact that it's a fiber that has multiple facets to it besides just being fiber. It has both soluble and insoluble
insoluble.
fiber in
That's a
that
nice
nut, which
mix.
is awesome. Yeah, it's a really
You have
nice
to
mix,
have both,
and
right?
it's got some great other nutrients as well. So interesting. Thought I was gonna pan it and say, okay, this is terrible, but I,
And that's
actually
why we
loved what.
love to read the news because we always learn something new, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you see it coming out, I'm looking up the. Hang on a second. Let me get the name. Yes, it's called Compound Solutions Incorporated. They're the company that's selling it. It's called Fibrous, Fibris, and or Fibrous, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Um,
Well, that's good. We'll
but it
probably
is
start
actually
to see
really
it.
nice.
Yeah, we'll probably
Yeah.
start to see it in the marketplace soon.
Yeah,
But that's
and so I think that's a really it's a worthy thing to talk about.
definitely, absolutely. Okay, next headline.
All right, the next headline. I like this one because it's got a little bit of kick to it. The number one fruit eaten by the world's oldest living people. Now, believe that. Eat it, and this is coming from another wonderful site called Eat This Not That.
Right.
All right, from May 12th of this year.
Hmm.
And what they're saying is that regular consumption of papaya has been anecdotally linked to longevity of the population living in the Costa Rican peninsula of Nicoya, one of the 5 regions in the world. And they've measured these things now. They call them the blue zones. One of the 5 regions in the world with the highest incident of individuals living past the age of 100. Now, that's pretty awesome. I mean, our lifespan has gone way up
It has.
from,
Yeah, there are a
from
lot of people in their living into their 90s now.
yeah. But to live past 100 and to be active and so on is pretty impressive. Now, obviously, they've got 5 regions in the world where we've got, centenarians. But what's kind of cool about that is that each one of those regions is going to have different foods, different climate, all of that. So it's not just any one thing, which I
Right.
love.
Like the
It's
Himalayas
like
has
Nancy, talking
goji
about
berries and yeah,
yeah,
mulberries and yeah,
yeah, it's like talking about the gut revolution and all of the different microbes. It's
right.
not just one microbe.
It's
It's
not.
it's it's getting to the point where it takes a village, even in your gut. So one of the things that really fascinates me about this is that these are not the papayas that we know of in the marketplace. These are not the orange papayas that come from Hawaii that are all nice and sweet. You squeeze a little lemon on
Delish,
them, and there you
right.
go. You have a beautiful breakfast, and those are delicious,
Hmm.
and they're very good for you.
Yes, they are.
But these are green,
Yeah.
and so the flesh is green. It's not a beautiful orange colored flesh or anything, and it has some amazing properties to it. Some of those properties are very much around digestion.
Yeah.
And that's the real key here is that again it's kind of almost going back to Nancy in her first article there. It's digestion and the gut microbiome is so much involved in our health. Now, if we jump back to the baobab for a second, the indigenous people who live around where those baobab trees are and who harvest and eat the fruit of the baobab, they have some of the most diverse um, microbial ecosystems in the world. So it's kind of interesting to think about how, just simple different foods can change our microbiome. And I know with green papaya, one of the crazy things about green papaya is that way back when I used to have a juice company in
You
Hawaii
used to,
many, many moons
you know
ago.
this fairly well, green papaya, pretty
Yeah,
well.
many, many moons
Yeah.
ago. One of the things that was really effective for helping people who had, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have a trouble eating protein. And a lot of people are on heavy, heavy meat diets. And
Mm.
there's, we tend to not digest the meat as quickly. So especially if we're eating lots of it, and we can end up carrying lots of, sorry to be, so precise here, but rotting meat in our gut. So, no, I'm serious. If
Putrefaction. Hmm.
yes, right, it's just putrefying in our gut, which is not a pretty thing. And the interesting thing about that is that green papaya has this beautiful milky sap that normally comes out of it. That when I used to make juices for people working with a doctor or with multiple MDs, one of the things about getting somebody cleansed, doing a cleanse, a really good colon cleanse, is cleaning out all of that putrefying junk. And the enzymes in that papaya worked extremely well to do that. So it was very healing.
Clean
But
house.
yeah, it was a great house cleaner. So I'm not surprised at all. I love this article, and I think that it actually is. It highlights the fact that, and I'm starting to see it here in Santa Cruz where I live. I'm starting to see that there are different papayas coming out. The
Yeah.
Meridol papaya
Yeah.
and another papaya from Central America.
There's a
So
Thai papaya too, I think. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And each one of those
Yeah.
has its own very wonderful benefits that it can give to
Yeah.
our bodies. So another good article. Love these
Yeah.
articles.
Super. Okay, and one more headline. It says and this is actually, the headline comes from Holistic Primary Care, and we had Eric Goldman on our show a couple episodes ago, and I really wanted to share this headline because we've talked about research before and how important herbal research is. Research on our herbs is gaining acceptance, and we're seeing more of it. SCNM Scalzo Institute. So Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine's Scalzo Institute charts new directions in herb research. And with an ambitious mandate to study botanical medicine at the cellular, molecular, and cultural level to create novel botanical solutions that support people, plants, and planet, the Rick Scalzo Institute for Botanical Research at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine aims to refine our understanding of herbs. The new institute is equipped with state-of-the-art analytical equipment and staffed by experts from diverse disciplines who, working together, will increase scientific rigor in the study of herbs while honoring the traditional knowledge at the heart of herbal medicine. It's a place where cutting-edge phytochemistry is guided by deep ethnobotanical wisdom. The herbal industry is often criticized for the lack of evidence, says Bill Cioffi, VP of Strategic Partnerships and Business Development at the Institute. That's why elevating the research and engaging future naturopaths, medical doctors, and natural products companies is so important. So it's really nice to see that there are now growing institutes. We're a little behind, to be honest with you. Germany has been studying herbs in
Plant medicine,
plant
yeah.
medicine in the rigor of science for a couple of decades now. They're a little ahead of us there.
Multiple more than a couple of
India's been
decades, yeah.
studying their herbal medicine for 40, 50 years, if not more. And Asia's been studying their herbal traditions and herbal medicine for decades as well. So finally, here in the United States, we actually have an institute that has state-of-the-art equipment and is, focused on getting more evidence-based information to understand our herbal traditions here and share that with the public. So that's pretty exciting news, I thought.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you know what? One of the other things that it highlights is that now these wonderful colleges, Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine, Bastyr University.
Mm-hmm.
There's some wonderful colleges, Thai Sophia on the
Mm-hmm.
East Coast, some wonderful places that have incredible courses, incredible programs, turning out naturopathic doctors, turning out acupuncturists and
Clinical herbalists.
Chinese herbalists and clinical herbalists and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing that they don't have a broader awareness in the general public of who they are, what they are, what they're doing. So anytime I see research like this and institutes being set up within the parameters of these universities, it tells me, all right, this is a good sign. This is growing. There are going to be people who are going to say, I want to go to that college because I want to be part of this.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And that's, yeah,
It's
that's
really
to me,
exciting.
that's what's exciting because that's the younger generation coming up. There's so many younger people who are interested in the idea of herbs and natural healing and natural medicine. And it's great for them to have wonderful places to go, like Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine or Bastyr, some of, Thai Sophia, some of these places are just amazing.
Yeah, they really are.
So, do I hear? I do.
Ah,
Oh,
very
this is a
sweet.
hilarious little segment. It reminds me of watching Laurel and Hardy dance across the screen.
Well, it
This
is.
is called Our Favorite
Yes,
Things,
it
and
is.
it is really one of my favorite parts of the show. So, cue the music. I want to start off. I'm going to start off today with one of my favorite herbs, and it's an interesting herb because a lot of people don't think about it as a medicinal plant. If you're a gardener, you love the flowers. If you live in a really cold region, there are some versions of that flower that will, you know, even grow in really cold regions, but not too cold. And that's the hibiscus. Now, I know a lot of people have, this idea. You think of hibiscus, and you see a Hawaiian person with a lei on a little hibiscus flower in their ear, tucked behind their ear. And we associate hibiscus with the tropical climes. In fact, it does its best, it flowers its best between about 65 degrees and 90 degrees. So it is a very tropical flower. It was first domesticated, which I thought was fascinating, about 4000 BC.
That's a long
In
time
Egypt.
ago.
Long time ago. We're talking way past great grandpa.
Yeah.
What's fascinating to me is that it's been used ethnobotanically for centuries and centuries, and it's been used all around the world where it's spread. So it's not just like in Egypt or in the Mediterranean countries, or because it's spread to Central America, it's spread to India, it's spread to Brazil, it's even to New Zealand and Australia. So it has a lot of wonderful things that it's being used for. Primarily, one of the things about hibiscus that I love the best is the fact that it is a super cardiovascular ally. It is one of those simple things. Sometimes the simplest things are the best.
It's true.
With the plant, what you're using is you're using the flower, and I'm going to show you a picture, and it's on a book that I want to recommend. So I'm going to show you the picture, and you can see the. Are we looking at that? Okay, Nan?
Yeah. I mean, you
All
can
right.
lift
So
it up a little bit more. There you go.
if you see down in the bottom, that right there is what's called the calyx, and that really bright red calyx. That's the bottom part of the flower where it connects onto the stem.
And this isn't any old hibiscus. This is a type of hibiscus called rosea.
Yes, so that if you look it up, it's roselle. It's Hibiscus sabdarifa, and so if you have a beautiful hibiscus in your yard, you could go pick the flowers. They're nice, but they don't have medicinal aspects
Right.
to them. Whereas this has some really wonderful medicinal aspects, and interestingly, really, because it's easily cultivated, there's very little in it that is going to be something absolutely special. Like when Nancy was talking earlier, a lot of times scientific studies will take one plant and then they'll break it all apart,
Right.
looking for just that one magic ingredient, and they don't understand that it's the combination of everything in that plant that makes it work the way that it
Right.
is. And that's why herbal medicine to me has always been so fascinating, because the plants themselves have evolved over eons, and they have their own defense mechanisms. They have their own way of feeding, getting nutrients, and so on. And yet they have compounds that are very, very supportive of human health in many different ways. And for this particular plant, one of the things that it's had a lot of human studies, and this is unusual for an herb, especially unusual for an herb that's not going to bring a lot of profit to companies, because human clinical trials can run into the millions of dollars
Yes, that's
by
for
the
sure.
time they're all said and done.
Yeah. Good ones.
Good ones. And when you've got a simple flower like this, and the calyx, that has been studied in numerous human studies, um, it's really pretty amazing. And one of the things that it's studied for is hypertension. Now, when you stop and think about it, hypertension is high blood pressure, right?
Right.
And amongst other things. And hypertension is rampant in this country right now. Uh, this herb is used in countries as diverse as Southeast Asia and South Asia and India and Brazil and all of the Central American countries. And right now, we're just finally in the United States again, like Nancy was talking earlier. We're just catching up.
Yeah, we really
Some of
are.
these. We have sort of missed the train, missed the taxi, missed the
Unfortunately.
rickshaw, but we are starting to catch up.
The rickshaw.
And and really and truly, it's if you are looking at something to augment your diet, augment what you do, hibiscus is, especially if you're looking to do so because you've got some sort of cardiovascular issues. Hibiscus is one of the most amazing things that you can do. It ranks right up there with hawthorn berry, and it is, and CoQ10 is a supplement. It is an amazing herb, and one of the nicest things I think it's just, I'm looking outside now, and it's like super sunny where I live here in Santa Cruz right now. Beautiful, beautiful day, but it's summertime and it's
Hot.
hot. And this is one of the most amazing teas. I mean, we've mentioned earlier in earlier segments about flavors and how flavors affect the body. And primarily we talk about 5 flavors when we look at flavors that way. We talk about sweet and sour and bitter and salty and spicy. If you're looking at it from an Ayurvedic point of view, you add one more in there called astringent, and astringent has got that puckery, tight feeling when you eat it. So if you eat a persimmon, for instance, it's a little bit too green. It hasn't ripened fully yet. You might get that kind of puckery feeling. That's an astringency, and normally that's listed under the category of bitter in a lot of terms. But each flavor can have an effect on the body. And this beautiful flower in the calyx, it's sweet, it's sour, and it has that sort of astringency to it that holds on to things, that helps to cool the body down. So it's during the summer, this is one of the most cooling teas I've ever come across, and I love it. What I do with it is I'll make a sun tea. So sun tea, if for those of you who don't know, you take whatever herb you're trying to make into a tea, put it into a jar with some spring water, set it out in the sun all day, and it will infuse naturally into the jar, and you'll have this beautiful tea. Now with the hibiscus like this, that tea is going to be the most glorious red color you can imagine. And take it in at the end of the day, put it in the refrigerator. The next morning, you're going to have some of the best cool iced tea that you can imagine having. And it will cool you down. You can
Yeah.
literally drink this tea
It
and
will
feel it
definitely cool
cooling you
you
down
down.
as you're drinking it. So on a hot, muggy day, it's an amazing
Moves the
tea,
water
and
in
you're
your
doing
body
yourself,
too.
yeah,
One of the
and
reasons
you're
why it
doing
was
yourself a great favor.
used for weight loss was really not weight loss. It was
Absolutely.
a little water loss, basically. Yeah, if you hold on to
Yeah, well,
water.
it's also used for
Yeah.
hyperlipidemia. So too much fat in the body. It's used for circulatory issues. I mean, it's just, again, it's a very cardio-supportive tea and easy to make, easy to get.
And
Just when
delicious.
you're buying it, remember you're looking for the Hibiscus sabdarifa, or more commonly known as roselle, Roselle. And that Hibiscus roselle is the characteristic red calyx like that you saw the picture of. And that book, by the way, is a book by she's a naturopathic doctor, whoops, called Leslie Taylor, and it is called The Hibiscus Flower. So really a great book. She has a whole series that she does. She is a naturopathic doctor. She has a whole series on tropical fruits and their benefit. And what's interesting about it is because she's not making a product, she's not selling anybody's product, she's not recommending anybody's product. All she's doing is talking about the herb. So you get the straight skinny. There's no marketing hook to it. And that's why I like her books. Now, another couple of books really quickly. This is another one that I love. And just because she has a French name doesn't mean that I am partial, but I love Rosalie de la Forêt. And she is also a registered herbalist, and this is called The Alchemy of Herbs.
Yeah.
And she's got some wonderful, wonderful teachings in there.
She has a school too, and you can look her up.
Yeah, she has a
She
school as
posts
well.
quite a bit on Instagram, and yeah.
And then there's another one, and Brigitte is a fabulous, wonderful herbalist and a friend of mine. Lives out in Colorado area, Boulder, Colorado. This is called Healing Herbal Teas. And again, she's talking about how to make hibiscus tea and the different things you can do. Now, Rosalie has a wonderful little recipe where she blends it with some peppermint. And I like to, take that a little bit further, and I'll add a tiny little bit of cinnamon. And, actually get a cinnamon bark, the little wrapped twig, and stir that when I'm making the tea, when I'm making it hot.
Sounds
And
delicious.
it's so good. It's so good. That sour, sweet, and a little bit of cinnamon, a little pungency helps to keep the balance so it's not too cooling. Because if you do run a little bit cold, I tend to run really hot. So for me, this is a beautiful tea. If you tend to run a little bit cold, it's nice to put a little bit of cinnamon or a little warming
It'll
spice
warm
in
it
there.
up. Yeah.
And if you want to sweeten it, you can do some licorice root. Simmer some licorice root while you're making the tea, because this is a tea that needs to be simmered a little bit. Now, just real quick, and then we'll let Nancy move on to her favorite thing. When you're making teas, there's two different types of making a tea. There's what's called a decoction, and there's what's called an infusion. And sometimes people get confused. They don't understand what's a decoction, what's an infusion. So a decoction is where you're taking usually bark or roots or a heavier, denser part of the plant, like in this case, the calyx, and you're slow simmering it. You're not boiling it. It's just a simmer, but you'll slow simmer it for 20 to 30 minutes. That's a decoction. Now, an infusion is what we would normally call steeping. Okay, so you get used to a tea bag. You put it in your cup. You put the water in, and you let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes. And the water was boiling or hot when you put it in. That's steeping or infusion. So this is a tea that you really want to make as a decoction. And then if you want to add your licorice root, you can add the licorice root at the same time. Cook it for 15 to 20 minutes at a really slow simmer, and then just turn the burner off. And if you want to, then you can add some peppermint, like Rosalie suggests, because that's something that needs to be infused as opposed to being decocted. So there we have it. That's my favorite thing for the day. And go out and get some hibiscus tea and enjoy your summer afternoons. Ice it up, put a little bit of mint sprig in there, and you'll love it.
Great. It's such a good summer herb. It really is. Everyone should have it. Okay, my favorite thing. Rhodiola rosea. It's a really good time of year for Rhodiola rosea because people are really active. They're trying to get the most out of the summer. Rhodiola rosea is also known as golden root or Arctic root. It's a true adaptogen. So true adaptogens are herbs that are classified because they help humans who take them to adapt to stressors. But every single fluid and organ is affected by the herb in a beneficial way in response to stress. So true adaptogens don't just push the body in one direction. They kind of get the body to help it to balance. So we love adaptogens. They're generally recognized as safe. There's only a couple of cautionary pieces of information on adaptogens, but Rhodiola is literally one of my favorite true adaptogens. It's something that I take every day, and I often give it to my clients. It grows wild in the high, dry, Rocky Mountain ranges of Asia, Mongolia, Siberia, and the subarctic regions of Alaska, Europe, and Scandinavia. It has, as you can see in this, has these delicate yellow flowers. The plant is found at 10,000 feet in elevation, growing once the snow melts. It thrives in very harsh conditions, so deep cold, very high winds, droughts, reduced oxygen as well, and intense radiation. At that elevation, there is not a lot of protection for the radiation of the sun, so intense radiation, and that's its normal environment. That kind of exposure is its normal environment. The roots are what
Grows up in a rough neighborhood.
that's for sure, and it gets pretty tough. The roots are what is used. They're pale in color, and when you cut them, they have a very strong aroma of roses, and that's where it gets its name, Rhodiola rosea. There are 16 other species of rhodiola, and we'll talk about that later, why it's important to know Rhodiola rosea and to remember that name. But I call it the gentle ginseng, because a lot of people know what ginseng is for. They think, oh, you take ginseng, it makes you stronger, it helps you get through the day, it's
More
great.
endurance.
Right,
Yeah.
it's, and rhodiola has that about it, but it's gentler. So it really does help your body manage stressors on a continuum, if you were to take it on a continuum. Its attributes in traditional herbalism are many. They really are. It's been known to maximize your energy, assist in adapting to stressors, sharpens your memory and mental acuity, supports a healthy cardiovascular system. It's known to ease anxiety and stabilize mood. It assists in gentle hormone balancing, and it enhances physical performance. It's also known to gently improve sexual function in both women and men. There are numerous clinical trials on Rhodiola rosea. In the year 2000, a pilot study was performed on college students that demonstrated a 50% improvement in psychomotor function and mental fatigue. And since then, there have been continued trials on depression, mood stabilization, sexual function, effects on fatigue from mononucleosis, and other types of post-illness fatigue, including Lyme's disease. Some of the research is very interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. In 2015, March, published in Phytomedicine, Rhodiola rosea versus sertraline for major depressive disorder, a randomized placebo-controlled trial. What was really interesting about the study, there were 57 subjects. They were randomized to 12 weeks. They were given either a placebo, sertraline, or Rhodiola rosea extract. What the results were, they weren't statistically significant as in comparison to sertraline. They were over the placebo for both of them. But what was really interesting is that, yes, it did reduce, Rhodiola rosea did reduce depression. It reduced the 57 people who were in the trial, reduced their feelings of anxiety and depression, as well as sertraline. But what was the most notable about this study was that it resulted in significantly fewer adverse events than sertraline. So it was better tolerated. It worked, not as strongly as sertraline, but it worked, but had fewer adverse events. So that was very favorable. The study was very well done, has a trial registration. And from there, that was a jumping off point for even more research on rhodiola for anxiety and depression. There was another.
And Nan,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, don't want to interrupt, but one of the crazy things is that it's been very studied in Russia, obviously, which is one of the places that it's most indigenous.
Right.
And a lot of those studies are in Cyrillic, or they're in Russian, and so they're not translated.
That's
But
true.
it has years and years of research. They were using it for their athletes during the Olympics.
They're
They were using it for
cosmonauts.
the cosmonauts,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the studies, I'm always fascinated by the way some of these studies are done. One of the studies that was done on airport control tower operators who sit in a dark room and stare at a screen
Yeah.
all day long.
And
That's
they
their
are
job.
responsible for people's lives. Yeah.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives. And so high stress,
Very high stress.
it really is the burnout for control tower operators is pretty heavy because it is a very high stress job. And rhodiola was shown to be extremely beneficial
Yeah.
to help them concentrate, to help them not have the visual fatigue at staring at the screen for so long. So,
That was an
it's like when
interesting
Nancy,
open label trial. Yeah, there's
yeah,
another one I wanted to share on chronic fatigue, and it was published in Complementary Medical Research in 2017. And the title is Rhodiola rosea in subjects with prolonged or chronic fatigue syndromes. It's results of an open label clinical trial. They used a daily dose of 400 milligrams, and I think it was divided 200 milligrams twice a day, which is the
yeah,
way to do it. So the dosing schedule of rhodiola is really more complex than just take 400, 500 milligrams a day. It's not like that. You kind of have to spread it out over the day. But what was great about the results is that after 1 week of treatment, they observed changes in their fatigue. The people who were in the study, really, there were over 100 subjects, and they really noticed after 1 week. So that's exceptional. And
that's profound when you can have that kind of a result that quick.
yeah, it was really great. And so the results indicated that two capsules of 200 milligrams may be an effective treatment in subjects suffering from prolonged or chronic fatigue. So, and it was very well tolerated. And I think those are really hopeful. I mean, a lot of times people who have fatigue issues, it's like playing whack-a-mole, right? They come in, it's like, does this work? 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 You're just, it
This
really
worked
is.
last week. It's not
It's not
working this
working
week.
this
Yeah,
week, and that often happens with people who have fatigue,
yeah.
from an ongoing illness, or after an illness they never really recover. Like often with mono, that can happen where they're just fatigued for months, sometimes years afterwards. And we're seeing that with long haulers, from COVID long haulers, where people have this, that's it. They have this crushing fatigue and they can't seem to get over it. So rhodiola is definitely something to think about. One of my favorite books to share on rhodiola is called The Rhodiola Revolution. And it's written by Doctors Brown and Gerberag, and they are a husband and wife. And he's a psychiatrist, and they both spent a portion of their lives traveling to see this plant in its natural habitat. They studied the historic and the scientific literature using the plant in their psychiatric and medical practices. It's an approachable book. It's easy to read. It has a multitude of references in the back of the book. And I do want to say that because of this book in year 2000 something, I can't even remember what it was. It was like, I think it was over 20 years ago. I remember reading it. It was still in my library. I love it. I mean, the science, the research on rhodiola has moved on, but the traditional use has continued. It is an herb of commerce now, and it means that it's very valuable on the raw materials market. and it can be subject to adulterants by people and companies attempting to cash in on the desire for it, in the marketplace. So there are 16 other species of rhodiola, and they don't have the same effects or safety profile. And it's imperative that you know for sure that you're purchasing Rhodiola rosea. You should speak to your herbalist or naturopath or chiropractor or natural health practitioner that has had good herb training and has also done their homework on their products or their companies. Where did they get the rhodiola? Where did it grow? Has it been identified as Rhodiola rosea? Rhodiola rosea typically should be taken earlier in the day and not at the end of the day. Like ashwagandha, we were talking about ashwagandha. You can take it at the end of the day because it'll make you sleep. Rhodiola doesn't do that. Yeah. Rhodiola doesn't work in the same way as ashwagandha. So you take it during the first part of the day. It can give you really vivid dreams or give you a restless night. It's slightly warming. It's considered a neutral energy, but it has a little bit of warmth in it. And the amount taken per serving and the number of times per day has differing effects, and that's really important to pay attention to. So it's really recommended that you consult with a registered clinical herbalist or natural health practitioner that's trained in clinical herbalism if you're considering taking rhodiola, because of the spectrum of outcomes dependent upon serving or dosing. Okay, so for physical performance, you'd take a certain amount in a certain way. And for mood alterations like depression or anxiety, you take a certain amount in a certain way. There are conditions that are contraindicated for rhodiola. You know me, safety first, right? Most notably bipolar disorder. So you do want to ask people, if they're saying, I'm really thinking about taking rhodiola because I have depression, you have to ask, are you self-diagnosing depression or have you seen a professional and they've diagnosed for depression? And in addition to that, are you on any other drugs that were prescribed? And in addition to that, were you ever diagnosed with bipolar disorder? So there's some things that you have to be careful with here, but for the most part, rhodiola is really safe. And if you're a healthy person and you're looking to just augment your energy, it's not a stimulant. But it really does move the blood. It warms the body. It opens the mind. And that's why we tell people don't take it at night, because you'll have crazy dreams at night. It's just crazy dreams. So
you won't be able to lose your focus on those
oh,
dreams.
for sure.
It really does help you focus. It really does help you
Yeah.
concentrate.
It's
And like Nan said, don't take it late in the evening, because taking it late in the evening is going to do exactly that. And also, if you can't find an herbalist, if you're somewhere where you can't find an herbalist, we like to put a plug out there for a wonderful organization, the American Herbalist Guild. You can go to ahg.org,
Yeah.
ahg.org, AmericanHerbalistGuild.org, and they have a wonderful reference site there where you can give them, this is where my location, this is my zip code, this is where I live, and they can put you in touch with a registered herbalist. Now, to be a registered herbalist, you have to have treated a certain number of patients. You have to have gone through a rigorous testing that they do with not just one person, but you're like sitting in front of a group of herbalists, talking to them, presenting your cases, showing that you know your stuff.
basically your boards.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a board certified, and it's a wonderful organization. Really, ahg.org.
Yeah. That's great. So everyone, and that's it for today. We will be doing this podcast twice a month, sharing our perspectives of natural health and healing, and we'll also be interviewing key people and thought leaders in the natural products industry to hear their knowledgeable perspectives. And if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to and like our Facebook page or Instagram. We are also on YouTube, and now we're on TikTok. So please share our podcast.
We're trying to catch up with all the trends.
I know. There are a lot of them. Please
I'm
share our
loving TikTok,
podcast
though.
with interested friends and family.
TikTok.
And let us
Thank you, everybody.
And let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about by adding comments. And on any of the social media sites, we will get back to you. We're a little slow about it, but we do check in, and we love to hear what you have to say. And if there's something you want to hear about, or if there's something you want us to talk about, or if there's someone in the industry that you'd like to hear from, please let us know in the comment boxes on our social media sites. So we want to thank you so much for joining us today.
All right.
All right.
Cue the music.
See you later.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. Until next time, I'm Nan.
And I'm Tom.
We'll have more great topics and guests in the very near future. So join us right here in 2 weeks as the Supplement Super Sleuth
And the Herbal Storyteller take another deep dive into the fascinating world of the natural products industry.
See you later.